Morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. We're so happy to see you all back in. For those who are joining today for the first time, welcome to what we hope will be a very interesting few hours on the global meeting on child marriage. My name is Nankali. If I might repeat myself again, I'm the UNFPA-UNICEF Coordinator for the Global Programme to End Child Marriage. We're on to day 2 of a 3-day workshop that will be taking place. So thanks for joining in today. Wanting to make sure that you're aware that we'll also be having another day tomorrow, which will be our last day, perhaps our most interesting day. So please do remember to come back and log into that as well. I'm going to hand over to the moderator for the session today, but before I do that, I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that in the background materials for this particular session is a wonderful video from the Ghana team looking at the girls program that they're implementing there. So as we bring on Fabio, who's going to be talking about young people and the participation of young people, we have something live, something really interesting for you. So please do look out into the background materials for that video from Ghana. And without further ado, over to you, Fabio.
Thank you, Nankali. Can you hear my voice okay?
Yes, perfectly, thank you.
So dear colleagues, good morning, afternoon and evening. Welcome to our session. I will contradict Nankali. It is not tomorrow the most interesting day, it is now the most interesting session. We'll spend the next 30 minutes discussing how we can leverage innovation and technology for results on child marriage, including keeping an eye on inclusion. My name is Fabio Friscia. I work for UNICEF with the ADAP team, Adolescent Development and Participation. Our special guest for this session is Sandra Cortezi. Sandra is the Director of Youth and Media Project of the Center for Internet and Society at Harvard University, where she looks into innovative ways to approach social challenges in the digital world. Sandra focuses on topics such as inequitable access, information quality, risks to safety and privacy, skills and digital literacy, and spaces for participation, civic engagement, and innovation. Thinking to the title of our session, Connecting with Audience, we witnessed a profound digital revolution in these last years. We quickly moved from the digital sphere can be a nice to have to the digital sphere is the starting point for connecting with our audience. We are all very aware of the advantages and the limitations of this technological innovation, including for what concerns inclusivity. This said, these last years have represented an exciting journey, especially for people like Sandra, who, thanks to her professional work, has a privileged observation point. But today it is us, the privileged, who have the chance to hear from Sandra, who will share with us 3 ideas for youth engagement in the digital sphere. Sandra, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Fabio. Thank you to everyone for having me here today. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm really delighted. Thank you to everyone who is here listening and contributing your time. I do have some slides that I think someone will present in a second. Otherwise, I'm happy to do it myself. But let's see if this works. Okay. So, super. Okay, next slide. So my name is Sandra Cortezi. You already heard a very brief introduction from Fabio about me, but just so you get a better sense, even though we're here in Zoom world, about me, I am the director of the Youth and Media Project, which is a project at the Berkman Klein Center for Internet and Society, which is a research center at Harvard University. So I'm an academic, and I study young people ages 12 to 18, often in collaboration with other entities like UNICEF, for instance. So you see on this world map, the little dots of countries and places I and my team, we have done work at. So it gets you maybe a sense for the global aspect of it. Next slide. My work, now you went two ahead. Past slide. Yes, exactly. My work usually looks a little bit more like this, especially in pre-COVID times. My happy moments are when I'm in a room full of young people together collaboratively doing work and tackling difficult questions. Right now, I'm in my home office, so the world looks a little bit different, but that's usually a little bit more how my days look like. Today, next slide, I am, as Fabio says, I will introduce 3 ideas for youth engagement based on my own work, and I'm very much looking forward to then having a discussion with you today or over the months and time to come about your work and how you approach these things in your daily lives. But so let's start with idea number 1. Part of me is Swiss, so the Swiss are always very worried about time, and I want to be thoughtful of that. So as Fabio already introduced it earlier, there is a digital revolution going on. So the first idea connects to that, and it is about engaging young people in digital spaces, but, and there is a but, keep an eye on non-digital developments. What do I mean with that? Next slide. Well, there is certainly no doubt that, maybe also a footnote, much of my work focuses on digital inequalities, which is not the topic of today's talk, but I'm very mindful of that. While in many parts of the world, for many young people, access to digital devices, particularly mobile phones, but in some cases also tablets and laptop, has increased over the last 14 years. You see here a comparison of teens at a concert. While it has increased, at the same time, also more platforms have emerged and digital spaces where young people can be, from Facebook to YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, to platforms that might be more popular in some parts of the world, like WhatsApp or WeChat and Line. In addition to access to more devices, more platforms, there are newer platforms that are also emerging, like different games that have similar functionalities, like some of these social media platforms where young people can talk to each other, but possibly also organizations can talk to youth. Next slide. So again, in addition to having more access to traditional devices that we're more used to, like mobile phones, and these platforms we might be more familiar with, like Facebook or TikTok, new devices or digital technologies are emerging. There are devices that are now much more capable at recognizing individual humans and engaging with them. Here is one from MIT, Jibo, for instance. More wearable devices are emerging, could be watches, but also other types of devices. And then there are additional devices that young people can engage with through voice. All to say that really this is here to probably stay. At the same time, next slide. This is maybe where I added a footnote when I introduced this type of engagement. In my daily work, I see, I wouldn't say an increasing number, but a significant number of young people that are starting to question the role these technologies play in their lives and the value, especially, that they add. And what I'm observing, or what we are observing in our work, is that through the questioning of the value, the technologies itself sometimes have a little bit less of a center point, but instead it's more about what meaning or what do they enable, and how much worth or how valuable are those these capabilities. And so maybe as a takeaway, I would say the next slide are the following. So while I agree with all of you that digital technologies, including social media platforms, will remain a key component of young people's lives, and it's crucial, one, that you're present in it, and two, that your engagement is of high quality. For the years to come, it will be key to keep an eye on youth communities and activities that send you other signals, including the desire at times to disconnect from the digital world, a new interest in offline activities and excitement for non-digital experiences. This is particularly important if you're trying to reach youth at scale, so you don't start to miss one particular community that could be very important to your work. And maybe second point, focus, even when you are engaging on social media platforms in the digital world, focus on the why. What is in it for young people? How does it connect and help with challenges in their daily lives? And truly, how does it add value? So I would say instead of mobile first or social media first strategies, consider creating value proposition strategies first. Next slide, please. Idea number 2 for enhanced youth participation is to truly incorporate a youth perspective, being very aware that there is value in different conceptual understandings. Again, what do I mean by that? Next slide. In my work, but likely also your work, there are different terms or concepts, as I often say, could be from relationships to what is good life, to well-being, to privacy, to freedom, different concepts where we start to notice from research that young people's views about them are different than those of adults. I'm not saying one perspective is better than the other, I just say that there is a difference. To give you an example, next slide from my own work. On privacy, when we ask young people how important is privacy to you and what does it mean, they say it's very important, but then the connections they make are to social and interpersonal elements. So they talk about friends and teachers and family members, while adults have an institutional or commercial concept. So they think about governments and companies and entities like that. Similarly, next slide, when we talk about well-being, another topic we study at Youth and Media, we notice that maybe the concepts themselves are more similar that an adult person has and a young person has, but elements, there are nuances within the concept. So for instance, when we ask an adult, what is high quality education? And when we ask a young person, what is high quality education? There isn't necessarily always agreement on what the answer is. Next slide. So as a takeaway, I would say initiatives could be campaigns or projects or whatever it is that treat youth as passive recipients to adult-framed questions, issues, and concerns are just more likely to miss key aspects that matter to youth, because essentially you're not speaking their language, so you won't reach them as hard as you try. And what you can do about it is by directly involving youth in the design process, you will be much more equipped to develop products, again, can be campaigns or projects or strategies that address young people's needs, interests, and experiences. And on this slide, there's a link at the bottom also where you can learn in more detail also about that. But third idea, reaching also the end of my time, is to truly enable participation. And I know we all do our best within the frames within which we operate, but I would say enable participation across different levels of your organization. I know that's hard, but I'm here to support all of you, and hopefully collaboratively we can brainstorm ways how to do that moving forward even better. Next slide. So together with the ITU and colleagues there, we did a survey, a global survey in 58 countries, where we came up with 15 different models that are exactly meant to be implemented at different levels of an organization, and ask young people how valuable they would find them and which ones then in the end they found most valuable. Turns out young people are truly happy if you even consider youth engagement and participation within an organization. So almost all of them were popular, but the 4 most popular were youth labs, co-designing things with young people, creating a youth board, which would be again at the more strategic level, and then what we do, participatory research. but all 15 models are here. I'm sorry, they're a little bit small, but as big as I could. Next slide. So if you are currently thinking about different ways of youth engagement, and in essence, it can, all these 15 models could be digital or non-digital. It's just a matter of how you implement them, from internships to conferences. We're here at a conference and it's in Zoom land, so you can do those 15 models online as well as offline. The 4 that were selected by young people are described step by step in this report. So if you're interested in exploring, maybe this serves as a first kind of navigation aid. And then I'm curious also to see how you do it in your work and see what we could learn from it and what guidance we could give to those who are also experimenting. Next slide. Maybe as the last learning of today, I would say 3 things. 1, keep in mind again that youth engagement can be done at all levels of an organization. So from working with very senior executives at the highest level of an organization, this could be senior management or board of directors, to engaging with more junior staffers, to the product design team. And to me, it's very important that we keep all those levels in mind to do really fully and meaningfully youth engagement. As always, this maybe comes more natural. Youth engagement should be a 2-way street. So we are often very good at asking young people for ideas and inputs and feedbacks, and we invite them to our conferences. But I think what we learn from young people is they really want to know how it was, what they did and what they said, how you felt about it. So it's important that young people receive feedback. It takes time, but it's valuable time, it's meaningful time for them. And maybe as a last point, young people seek long-term inclusion. Often we're very good at involving them once or twice, but I hope to stay involved over time, because particularly if involved over time, they can form these connections and possibly find mentorship and be more exposed to different elements within this engagement that help them possibly also identify future career pathways and new interests. So I reached my minutes. I'm very mindful of that. I hope this was food for thought for today. And here are my contact details. I'm excited to continue talking with you about this. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Sandra. Precise to the minute, the dream of the timekeeper. Very compelling as usual. This was very relevant for us to hear. We heard concept of what's in for them. We should not be indulgent with ourselves and simply assume that if we go digital, we will be successful at mobilizing young people. The importance of linking with long-term goals and making long-term investments on system sustainability. Let's do not forget that quality work included in the digital sphere commands for long-term investment. Finally, I particularly appreciated you reminding us of the importance of keeping an eye to the non-digital sphere. The secret is probably finding the sweet spot and make the 2 spheres converge. So let's move to Q&A. I think we already have some interesting questions. The first one, Sandra, how has COVID modified digital sphere and access to the digital sphere? Second one is also somehow related to access. How about those communities that don't have access to connection? Any advices to deal with this in a way that is relevant and cognizant also the potential of the digital sphere? So we'll leave for these 2 first questions and then I will take it from there. Over to you, Sandra.
I will try to be brief, but the first one, I don't know how it was for all of you since you're all around the world, but most spaces where I usually engage with young people, schools, after-school programs, community-based programs, During COVID, those were no longer possible. These institutions were closed. So to the extent possible, we tried to move as much as possible we could to the digital world. It was a best effort in many cases. Many of the young people I work with, we realized that connectivity, particularly at households, is not as high quality as we would hope. So in many families where I work with young people, they had to share a mobile phone. So this also meant different times of engagement with a young person. You had to wait until the mom or dad would come home so you can have their mobile phone to connect and to work with us. And then there were other young people in other countries where access and connectivity was to a certain extent better, where the switch to the digital world was easier. And in that sense, you could reach suddenly many more young people. But yeah, I would say overall, that's difficult. It is and continues to be actually a difficult time. So moving forward, I think we cannot leave the question of connectivity. We cannot put it aside because there are still too many that are unconnected and where the connectivity is of low quality. And so what we can do is definitely also strengthen the institutions that are community-based, could be libraries, museums, but many of the entities you work with, so that young people can connect while they are in those spaces, as we work to also connecting the homes and all individuals. It often means also then traveling to young people and going where they are if they cannot come to you in the physical and digital world. But those would be a few reactions.
Thank you, Sandra. Next set of questions. Let's see if you can answer to this too. So a few questions about gender and gender equality. I will pick this one, which is a question at the same time suggests some reflections. When we transfer technology directly to girls in rural areas, the father took their phone, and additionally, this technology can put them at risk of violence. So we always need to look at gender transformative approaches, negotiation skills, awareness with family and community, so that girls can have safe access to technology. Similarly, another question which at the same time offers some reflection. For digital engagement, how do you ensure that there are some form of safeguarding in place? As we know, digital spaces are very poorly regulated and can lead to body image issues, exposure to sexual violence, online bullying, etc., while still making content that is openly accessible, interesting, and engaging for young people. Over to you, Sandra. Other two questions.
Obviously, all big questions, and both are very core to my heart and what I deeply care about. We're also part of the Equals project, for instance, doing much work on gender equality. The question of girls, I think. So one of the reasons why I advocate for youth engagement at the strategic level of what you do is to exactly also involve girls in the types of conversations like these. So it's important that we go to them and say, what is most meaningful to you? What is a safe way for you to be able to do this? How can we support you in what you do? What are your needs and what are your hopes for us? It is true that girls, particularly, even during COVID, we saw some of that. Girls have it particularly hard, so they need extra support from us. But I think the way through it is only by co-designing with them these programs and solutions, and not by thinking what they need and imposing it on them. It may at times include families as well, the mothers, I don't know, to the extent possible, but there you are much more of an expert. And again, it links maybe also to the previous question. I think these entities where girls can be during school or after school are key partners in providing safe and possible access. The safeguarding question, again, also very important one. There I would say a number of things. One, consider doing things that obviously are age and development appropriate when you are the creator of information or the sender of information. To maybe give young people a little bit more credit. Yes, these spaces are complicated. They were often designed by adults. They have content meant for adults. But in many cases, young people learn how to be more resilient as they are part of these spaces, try to navigate them, develop new strategies and skills for how to manage them. So again, not talking about the youngest age demographic here, but if you're talking about 14, 16, 18-year-olds, I would often give them a little bit more credit that they're trying to figure it out, and you can be a coach and mentor as they go. But I think a partnership is what they most likely need.
Thank you very much, Sandra. I would suggest to give the floor to our colleagues from Mozambique, provided they can be concise and in 3 minutes tell us about their fantastic program called SMS Bees, which is the Mozambican version of U-Report, which they are using, including as a strategy to tackle child marriage. Colleagues from Mozambique, are you here? Are you connected? Would you like to take 3 minutes?
Hello, colleagues. This is Sabine Michaels from Mozambique. Very sick, but I will try to I will try to say a few words. So we are in Mozambique. We have adapted the kind of U-Report platform to provide peer-to-peer counseling service online, which is basically you know, we have the counselors who are answering questions that are sent via SMS for free by adolescents and young people 10 to 24 throughout the country. Most questions relate to sexuality, HIV, teenage pregnancies, but also child marriage. And we have a referral system in place whereby if one of the counselors receives a message around child marriage or you know, a child protection issue, they are then referred to the child helpline, who then will do the investigation. We also refer them to health services, testing for HIV. But the issue that I would like to raise, I think I already put it in the comments, is that you need a phone to be able to access this platform, right? So it's a great platform, and we do run polls and all sorts of fantastic things and get really good data in real time. But access is an issue, and this is kind of slowing down the expansion. I think right now we have about 350,000 adolescents and young people all throughout the country registered on the platform. But we also do a lot of like sort of social marketing type approaches in the communities to advertise the service and to increase uptake. Like I said, the real issue is one, having a phone, and number two, you know, then being able to read and write and send and receive messages, which are free, obviously. One way that we have done a kind of mediation is that we have a program. It's a joint program with different UN agencies led by UNFPA on adolescent sexual and reproductive health, which is based on peer, like the peer-to-peer sort of the mentorship model, sorry. And girls have a certain number of groups in safe spaces, and they go through different kinds of sessions. What we have tried to do is to make sure that at least the mentor has a phone, and the mentor within that safe space can then, you know, kind of lend that phone or help the girl to send a message and receive it back. Obviously, it's not ideal, but it is kind of our own way of mediating through that kind of bottleneck. I hope I was brief enough, Fabio. Nice to see you.
You were just enough. Nice to hear you, Sabine. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I think you're giving us a very good example of how talking about the digital sphere is not something simple. And the Mozambique example is like putting technology at the center of an ecosystem and touching upon many different things. So I think you did it very cleverly. Sandra, thank you so much. It was very inspiring hearing from you. Colleagues, it has been a great session. If I have to summarize in 12 seconds, I think the potential is huge, it's in front of our eyes. Also, the risk for inclusivity are significant. But I do believe that as UN agencies, UNICEF and UNFPA, I mean, inclusivity, equality is our bread and butter. So I think that good programming and participatory approaches are two key allies that will allow to address issues of inclusivity. Thank you very much, colleagues. Again, Sandra, participants. I would like to give it back to Nankali, maybe. Thank you very much. Have a fantastic day, everybody.